Hey students, welcome to this episode of Truth and Consequences. I'm Lucas Jackson, the youth pastor here at Austin Oaks Church. My good buddy Stephen Hoffman with me. Thanks for being here today, Stephen.
You're welcome.
It's my pleasure that you're here.
And mine.
No, but it's more mine.
Okay, all right, you win.
And the question we have for today is, should you have a job as a middle school or high school student? And we don't really mean like chores at home. That may be an aspect. You may get an allowance for that, but like a job outside the home in middle school and high school. And so we want to just lay out a little bit of some passages here and then just kind of have a fun conversation about the subject at hand. So it's important, I think, for us to notice that Jesus himself actually did work.
Yeah.
In totally different context, totally different culture, but yet, he grew up in a family where his dad was a carpenter. And so he embraced the trade like any other Jewish boy would have done in that particular time. So, and carpenter actually, it's probably a better way for us to understand it as like a masonry type worker. That most of the houses there were built with brick and mortar, and so a lot of that as well as some woodworking. But it's just, he wasn't like in a cabinet shop cranking out cabinets with his dad. It was more a lot of stone work that he was doing. So Jesus himself even had a job, which even that, I'm still really intrigued because he spent a big chunk of his life working. Even before, in Scripture, we see that he starts his ministry at about age 30.
Yeah.
So about 3 years of kind of like hardcore ministry, sharing the truth about himself and about his dad, and the Holy Spirit going crazy and all that sort of stuff. But a majority of his life was, I think we could look at it in our culture and we would say it's like a deadbeat job, so to speak. And that may not have been viewed like that then, but I think I'm just intrigued that Jesus would spend that amount of time in a job.
Probably around 20 years.
Yeah.
That's something about like that.
Yeah.
Started working with his dad when he was 10.
Yeah, for sure. And so I think some passage that we can look at is like Genesis 2, and we could go to verse 15, and we can say the Lord took the man, that's Adam, and put him in the garden of Eden to work and to keep it. Now, this is before the fall. So working was a part of God's plan before sin entered the world. So this is absolutely a part of the working of God. But then we do see that work gets a lot more difficult, to say the least, because you can look at Genesis 2:17, and this is after the fall, after the sin has been committed, and this is what God tells Adam in verse 17 in Genesis 2. And to Adam he said, because you have listened to the voice of your wife and have eaten of the tree of which I commanded you, you shall not eat of it. Curses the ground because of you, and the pain you shall eat of it all the days of your lives. Thorns and thistles it shall bring forth for you, and you shall eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your face you shall eat bread till you return to the ground, for out of it you were taken, and from dust, and to dust you shall return. So work is obviously, because of the sinful nature, is harder and more difficult. Like you probably don't just, never sweat at work and it's just enjoyable. And
I'm sweating right now.
but work is it's work.
Yeah.
The word is you're getting after it. You're going to work.
Yeah.
And then we could also look at Ephesians 4:28, where work is also expressed for us. Ephesians 4:28, and it says this: let the thief no longer steal, but rather let him labor, doing honest work with his own hands, so that he may have something to share with anyone in need. And so to not go out and steal and take away from others, but to work a job, an honest job. I don't think every job can be God-honoring. I don't think you can rob banks as your job and say that you're honoring the Lord with that.
Seems intuitive.
Would you agree with that, Stephen?
Yeah, I think I agree.
Okay, just making sure.
I concur.
You concur, okay. But there's this aspect of there's dignity in work.
Yeah.
And so, and not only that, but then we get resources, which we not only for our own benefit and our own family benefit, but also for the benefit of those in need.
Yeah.
Which is a great aspect for us. And then one more verse here, 2 Thessalonians 3:10 says this: for even when we were with you, we would give you this command: if anyone is not willing to work, let him not eat. Which, isn't always true.
Right.
There's, for a middle school student, a high school student, you may not have a job and you probably still eat.
Yeah.
Your parents are providing for you. And there's other people, for example, who are disabled. And so that, so there's exceptions to the rule. But generally in life, work is going to be a part of our lives. From what? 8 years old, 9 years old, onward, at least it should be. When your little son, when would you want your son to start working? You know, around the house or whatever.
Oh man, he'll be doing small stuff when he's like 4 or 5.
Yeah.
I mean, silly stuff like taking out the trash in the bathroom
Yeah.
or something. I mean, something small, but I want from an early age that work is not bad.
Yeah.
That's what I want my kids to understand.
Without a doubt. And for us, I mean, Paisley was feeding the cat at like 3, and I was
Yeah,
mostly
yeah.
doing the work. I mean, it
Yeah.
required more effort for me to be there.
But that the culture is, that's what we do.
Yeah,
We take
yeah,
care of the house.
yes. This
Yeah.
is just a part of life and a part of, I mean, I say
It's
all the
not
time in the
abnormal.
Jackson family, we're going to do this in the Jackson family.
Yeah.
And so, Stephen, so let's just talk about like middle school and high school students, should they work? Like, and what are the implications of that, and why should they work?
Well, I think on a basic level, work provides a few different things beyond just resources. And it does provide resources, which is laid out for us in the Word, but I think
Yeah.
a couple of things. One is working helps you navigate and determine your own identity, which I continually realize that is like a progressive revelation in itself. You don't know who you are when you're young. You just don't. And that's not an insult. That's just reality. And when you start doing things, and you do kind of absorb a lot of identity from mom and dad.
For sure.
But when you start doing things outside the home, taking responsibility and exercising something where other people depend on you, you have to start innovating and getting creative. And you're going to learn how you do that well and how you don't do that well, and what comes easy and what doesn't come easy. And those things help you determine what your gift sets are. And I think there's very few ways that do that better than a job.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing it does for you is there is by nature there's something satisfying about accomplishment.
Oh man,
and,
without a doubt.
Yeah, and I think and so learning to like do that, see that, appreciate that, roll that up to the Father and say, man, work is not a bad thing. Work has its thorns and thistles, but work as a general rule can be pleasurable, depending on where you put yourself. And obviously we talked about this last time in our interview, but we can make some wrong choices that put us on paths that we probably weren't made for, and that can kind of mess with that. But as a general rule, and then if you can determine that early, I think, and then you do both of those things early, you really set yourself up for making a career choice that it befits you.
Yes.
Not because of money or because of fame or because of whatever, but because you realized early, like, I like doing this.
Yeah.
And I can make money doing this. Maybe not as much money as I can do other things, but I will go to work every day and like it, and I will have enough money to pay for and to like support my family or or whatever, and support myself until I have a family. And I think getting those two things identified early, especially when you're under the protection of your parents, where there's no risk.
There really isn't. I mean, what's the worst case scenario? Like, you try something and maybe you don't show up on time, which I recommend that you do, and you get fired. Like you're not going to jail for that.
No, you're not gonna not eat. You're not gonna.
Yes.
I mean, there's no risk.
Yes.
So
now, unless you have a car and you have to have a job to pay for the gas.
Right, yeah.
But still, like, it's not like there's not other jobs out there.
Right.
So you're right. There's very little risk in order for a student to say, I'm gonna work and do this job.
I think the obvious question is, okay, well, Stephen Lucas, I have school, and school is eating my life.
Yes.
And in my parents' opinion about school is that that's my primary job whenever I'm young.
Yeah.
You again, there is, man, and we talked about this last time too, but there is a very, 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 very thin line to walk when it comes to honoring your parents, and also, beginning to develop as an individual person.
Yeah.
Once you hit 15, 16, 17.
Yeah.
Because
like the goal is for you to become independent.
Yes.
And that creates a tension.
Yes, it does.
If you're a student,
it's very
and,
natural.
Your parents are wanting you to be more independent, and you need to be more independent because, Lord willing, you're not going to live at home the rest of your life.
Right.
And then there's that tension because then this, the student is being more independent, and then the parent, I'm a kind of a controlling person, so I don't have a teenager yet, but just that aspect of like, there's just that tension is there,
Yeah.
and it's very evident in that relationship.
And you're going to make decisions, and I experienced this growing up, but you're going to make decisions that your parents are going to say, I really think you'd be good at A, and you're going to be like, I don't like A, I want to do B.
Yeah.
And there's going to be multiple things that are down that alley that are going to cause conversations to happen between you and your parents.
Yeah.
The thing you need to remember is that obedience is always important, and that honoring your parents also means making decisions that are wise for yourself.
Yeah, without a doubt.
And wisdom is objective. Wisdom is not subjective. It's objective.
Yeah.
What is wise in life is always wise, and then we can look at the word and determine those things.
Yeah. And knowing that, like, for you as a student, life is, as a student, life is a lot different than it will be the rest of your life.
That's right. That's a good point. That's
Like,
a really good point.
Like,
Yes.
you're not going to be told what to do 8 hours a day, in college, if you
Right.
choose to go to college.
Right.
Like, you're going to maybe only go to class 12 hours a week or 15 hours a week. And then, but you may only have classes Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And so what do you do the rest of the time?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, when it comes to, you may work a midnight shift job, or a second or third shift, doing like police officers, they tend to work, sometimes at night, all that kind of stuff. And so, but normal life is not going to school for 8 hours a
No,
day.
it's not seeing your friends every day.
Yeah, that's not normal
Yeah,
life.
It's not at all. College is not representative as well, which is, it's a very, very good point. And I think, and it behooves. And I'm not a parent, but I think my parents did a really good job of balancing this, and I think I really was rewarded as their son for this, and so that's what I'm speaking out of.
Yeah.
But choosing to let your son or daughter make school secondary sometimes is really healthy.
It is.
I think.
It is.
Because my parents did that for me, and I think what that did for me was it allowed me to make certain choices about my future that I would not have made. Most importantly, things like doing Kanakuk and like a Christian sports camp and things like that, where I'm spending my 20s serving other people, not necessarily chasing a career. There were guys that were my age that every second of every day, summers, school, like hardcore school, 18 hours, 21 hours for college, and then during the summers, internship, because they were just driven to come out of college and be set up for that job. And I think you can miss a few things.
Yeah,
you can
without a
miss
doubt.
a few things.
And I do want to come back to, I think it's a good point to make, and we talked a little bit about previously internships, getting experiences, because if you want to be a police officer, and you should maybe try to find a way to see if you're going to be good at that. Like, if you want to be a police officer and you're a 15-year-old and you can't have a conversation with somebody else,
Can't do conflict. Yeah.
you may actually find out that you're going to be a terrible police officer.
And you hate it.
And you hate it because you're not any good. Now, but it also may be good for that student because maybe they're more on the shy side, or they have a hard time talking with other people. Like, getting a job is going to help them develop those skills on being less awkward.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Especially for middle school students, and we've all been there, it's kind of awkward. It's like having a conversation with a wall sometimes. The wall doesn't talk back.
Right.
And so learning to have those dialogues and conversations is going to be crazy critical, not just for that specific job that you may or may not like, but in your marriage one day, and in relationships, and as an employee, and dialoguing with your own family and eventually your own kids. That skill set is going to benefit them the rest of their lives.
Dealing with coworkers and roommates is, my goodness, the best medicine for being a good wife or a good husband. I think one of the best medicines, and apart from your relationship with Christ, obviously, but circumstantial things like roommates, and I don't mean just good roommates. I mean the bad ones. I mean the ones who don't pick up after themselves. I mean the coworkers who slough their job and they make you do everything. Learning how to, not because you're expecting to be married to somebody who treats you that way, but you will be married to someone who treats you that way sometimes.
Oh, yes.
And being ready to have patience and to recognize this isn't who my wife or my husband is. This is just a bad day. I'm going to take care of them But somebody who's never dealt with those things before at a job or as with a roommate, I think they're really gonna struggle with those things early on in a marriage because they're not gonna recognize them for what they are.
Yeah.
They're gonna think. I think if you don't have the experience with those things, it's easy to internalize those issues and say, this is about me.
Yeah.
Like
Without
the
a
reason
doubt.
they're doing this is because of me,
Yeah.
or if they cared about me more, they wouldn't do this, kind of thing. So there's
Yeah.
two ditches there, and I think that gets hammered out over time with coworkers and over time with roommates. I think those things get hammered out, and you're much less likely to take injury, even minor injury, and say, like, what? Like, and so I think a job is just infinitely and also you have money.
It's nice.
Having money's nice.
It is. Yeah, it is crazy nice.
Yeah, and I had a job when I was and there's something really nice about feeling like, hey, Mom, Dad, I'm going to go to the movies, and not saying, can I have $20?
Yeah.
Like, I have $20 because I worked on the weekend.
Yeah. And then you appreciate that movie more because you're like, it took me 2.5 hours of work to be able to watch this movie and eat this popcorn and this soda. Like,
Yep.
maybe next time I only watch the movie and I won't get the popcorn and soda. You know what I mean? Because then I can watch 3 movies
Right.
if I didn't get the popcorn and soda.
That's right.
Well, and I think also, like, I think there could be excuses that we make. Now, granted, like, I grew up in a small town, and it was actually easy to find work. You could haul hay, work for guys. Like, I washed dishes as an 11-year-old at a restaurant. But, like, here in Austin, in our city, like, there's certain age restrictions on working. And I get that. But,
Yep.
but I wouldn't want any of our students watching to come up with any excuses like, oh, I can't do that because I'm not old enough. Well, like, that doesn't mean that you can't be creative and find something to do.
Right.
Like, I know one of our students in high school, and he power washes driveways, which I think's awesome. Like, he makes it work. And his parents taking him to the job, and he makes it happen, or painting, or mowing a yard, or whatever it is. Like,
Yeah.
like you can do that at 11 or 12,
Yeah.
and you may be slow, it may not be that great, but hey, like, I know plenty of people in my neighborhood who are willing to pay a student because they see a student that's like, okay, they're out there getting after it, and I'm okay if it's not perfect because of the value that student's getting by doing a job for me. Like,
Yeah.
so I don't use any excuses. I think it's easy to come up with those excuses.
Yeah.
And also maybe really good to just also say you should get your driver's license as soon as possible so then you can drive to that job and mom and dad don't have to take you.
That is such a weird concept to me.
I agree.
I don't think I knew that was a thing until I moved here, and I met some students. This has been some years ago. I think they're probably graduated now, but they were like, I don't have it. I don't intend to get it.
Yeah.
I was at the licensing place like
Yeah.
10 minutes before they opened.
Yeah.
The day of.
Yeah, the day of your
The day of my 16th birthday.
Yeah.
I was there.
Yeah.
Just I couldn't wait.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any wasn't trying to get away from anything. I was just trying to be able to go.
Yeah, the freedom that comes with that.
Yeah. And so anyway, that's a weird thing.
Yeah.
What
Well,
else?
and you and I didn't have Uber, and
No, that's true too. That's true
So
too.
it is
That
different,
is
but
different.
nonetheless, like for most of you guys listening, you're going to be driving, unless you're going to live in like downtown Chicago and not go anywhere farther than 3 blocks from your house.
Right.
Which there maybe some of you are going to do that,
That's
but
my brother, actually.
but yeah. So you're being able to at least drive is great. So we looked at the truth like. So I think we would both say that we recommend that you have a job of some sort. It may
Yeah,
not need
if
to,
possible.
Yes, if possible. It
yeah.
need to consume your life. Obviously, by law, you got to go to school and get
Yeah.
that degree and all that sort of stuff.
And
But
as an aside, we didn't talk about this very much, but we understand that some of you are living lives that not just school is prohibiting you.
Yeah.
And I don't want this to be an indictment against you. I think some of you out there are taking care of family members, and you're picking up kids from school, and
real.
you're doing other things, and I mean, you honestly, a lot of you that probably are doing those things are also working jobs. I mean, because you have to take. So this is not like, oh, get your act together, go get a job. This is more like, look, if you have the space and if your only excuse is, well, I really want time on the weekends to recharge, then maybe consider investing earlier in yourself, in your character, by going and getting a part-time job, working 10 to 15, 20 hours a week during your high school years, not necessarily because you have to, which some of you do have to, I get that, but because people like Lucas and Stephen were there, and we look back on those years and we think, I'm super grateful that I did. The dividends it paid in my 20s and my 30s you can't put a value on it. The amount of relationship value. So I think that's a good thing to clarify. It's not
For sure.
Some of you just can't. And I know if I had a conversation with you, you're like, well, Stephen, but this, I'd be like, oh man, bro, totally. You can't. There's no way you could.
Yeah.
But some of you can, and some of you should.
Yeah.
So
no, that's good.
Yeah.
So we took a look at the truth of what Scripture has to say about this, and then so let's take a look at the consequences. Like what are some of the consequences if you as a student don't get a job as a middle schooler in a high school? And there's other circumstances, because some of these things, like for example, like I've mentioned, like you may not learn how to have conversations with adults.
Yeah.
Now, you could learn that doing other things without a job, like for sure. But having a job is going to help you to have conversations with an adult, and for you to like take criticism, which you're not going to like, and you're going to learn how to take that, receive that, and maybe let off some steam. But you're going to learn how to dialogue with adults, which is needed. Like you need to learn how to go back and forth with an adult in a kind, loving manner, even when they say something about the work that you did, and you may or may not like it.
Yeah.
So also, you learn discipline, like showing up on time, being there at a certain time. And some of you students may have already experienced this, but you get fired when you're not disciplined.
Yep.
Like, I understand that there's excuses and things happen, but I think it's important, and I'm wired this way, but I think it's important if you do show up late for something, just own it.
Yeah. Just
be like, hey, this is completely my fault. I had a car issue. It didn't really matter what the thing was. Like, I mean, it could be because you didn't plan ahead or because something happened. Like the other day, like I go to start my truck and the truck didn't start. So I know I got to jump it, go to AutoZone, have them test it, put in a new battery, and I'm off to the races. So, like my day was different. But just own it and, just try to do better with that.
Yeah, and employers understand that. When you don't make a practice of being late, they know those guys.
Yes.
They know those guys. Oh, Steven's very, very never late. And so when he comes in and he says, sorry, they're just going to be like, okay, no problem.
Yeah.
And they're going to believe you.
Yeah.
But if you're the type of person that's late a lot and you always have an excuse for why you're late, and I'm an employer, people are going to start thinking, the boy just don't want to get out of bed.
Yep. Without a doubt.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a job, you may not learn to be a good employee, because you're going to be told to do things that you don't like. You're going to be told to do things.
Even at your like dream job.
Yes. Yeah. And so you need to learn how to like do what you're told.
Yes.
Like, and if you don't, by law, if you don't like the job, you can quit.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna commit to the job and show up, like, you need to do what's told of you, if you like it or not.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and I think something got in the air over the last 10 years, and we became convinced that you're that we'll say it like this, that at some point you're not, the relationship between you and your employer is not consensual, and you did not say, yes, I will take this job, and yes, I will show up on time, and yes, I will do what's required of me. And that mentality is not good. When you step into that office or wherever you're going to be and you say, yes, I'll take this job, what you're saying is I'm going to do whatever's asked of me within reason and within the law or whatever, because those services rendered will be in exchange for a paycheck. Yeah. And at any point, Texas is a right to work state. At any point, they can fire me and I can quit. And I can go, and if I don't like the way that I'm being treated, I can go somewhere else. And guess what? If an employer, and I think it's hard to imagine this from an employer's point of view, but if an employer doesn't take care of his employees, he's not going to have employees. Like, nobody's going to work for somebody who treats them like garbage. Yeah. And people, and this is the big plight of the employer, is getting people keeping people around. Yeah. So if an employer has a hard time getting people, guess what? They're gonna do their best to treat you well. Or if they have a hard time getting people, they just don't treat people well. So all that to say, it's a consensual relationship. You said yes at some point to get that job. And you need to, in your heart, you need to treat that job as such. And if you want to quit because you don't like the circumstances, then that's your choice, and you can make it. And sometimes that's what's best.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
I know we got to wrap up.
No, you're good, because it teaches us grit, persistence, patience under heat, and when we disagree. I mean, so all those things aren't bad. Those are good things for us to learn.
Yeah.
And you're going to learn that under an employee that's not great, or under an employer that may be awesome. So those are still traits that they're going to need. I also think it helps students to learn how to handle money.
Yes.
And also it helps you realize the fact that you thought you were going to get $150, but you got $120 because you found out taxes was a thing. And then you're like, oh my word. And then you get the little awakening that comes with that. So that it's good. Helps you do the math a little bit.
And realize what Uncle Sam wants.
Yes, because that $10 an hour job is only $7.50.
Yeah.
By the time you take out
home.
taxes.
Yeah, take home. What you take home. Yeah.
I also think having a job helps you men learn how to be a more godly man, and you women learn how to be more of a godly woman. Like to prepare men and women for life in general, and especially, providing for our families, taking care of our families, taking care of our children. Eventually, all those things come into play by having a job. It teaches us those things. A couple more here is just general responsibility is going to come into play. Like if you don't have a job, there's a high chance that you won't learn some of those responsibilities. A job's going to help you do that, but also it helps you discover the value of a dollar. Like you realize that, man, those tennis shoes that you get every year for Christmas, and you didn't take care of them because you didn't pay for them, but then when you dropped $120, you maybe clean those shoes more often, and they probably last longer because you yourself purchased those things.
That's right.
And so, the value of a dollar is a great aspect for having a job. And then the last thing here is you're not going to learn what you're good at.
Yeah.
So having a job is going to help you to find out skills that you need, but also things that you're crazy passionate about. We had one student who crazy into art, and she went off to college for art, but she found that skill, not at college, working for a little art studio, and then she interned there, and then she's teaching art to other people. So she found her niche because her job. And so she found out what she was really passionate about through a job that she loved. And so, appreciate your time, Stephen, being here and just talking about work. I know both you and I like to work.
We do.
So
we do. And we understand thorns and thistles, and we get it.
Yes, we do. So if you have any questions about the things that we talked about, please feel free to comment below. We'd love to know your thoughts and even some clarification on anything that you may be curious about. So appreciate you guys. You guys have a good week.